fellow travelers, Mark here with woltersworld, and today we're here in Montreal, and today I want to talk about are some of the things that tourists do when they come to visit Montreal that really kind of upset the locals, because we're good tourists. We don't want to make the locals upset, so I want to give you some of these things you might not realize you're doing that totally drives the locals bonkers. And the first thing is, if you're using the public transportation here, if you're taking the metro and you're blocking the escalator, look, stand on the right, pass on the left. So don't have your bag blocking the left side of the escalator. Don't stand with your friend side by side on the escalator. Stand on the right, let people go, because this is a big city. People got to go to work. They want to get back to their neighborhoods. They want to get back home. And the metro is the way people get around. So don't block the escalator, because that will definitely get a person from Montreal to be like, ugh, tourist, ugh. Now, the next thing you might do that might upset the locals is something that you might notice in the background in a lot of our videos, and you might hear it going on right now, and that is, ask them, hey, when's all this road construction going to stop? Does it bother you that the roads are closed all the time? I mean, really, honestly, the slogan for Montreal should be Rue barrée, road closed, because there's so much construction here. And yes, as a tourist, it annoys you because you don't know how to find your parking spot, you don't know how to drive around town, you don't know what's closed when. But for the locals, it's like an extra level of hell for them trying to figure these things out as well. And having you pointed out to them doesn't really help things, because that just gets them kind of going in the first place, all right? Now, another thing you'll notice that the locals love here is to bike. And there's one thing that anybody that rides a bike gets upset with, and that's when people block the bike lane. Look, you'll see, whether you're in the Plateau neighborhood, you're here, you're in downtown, or in the old Montreal, there's a lot of bike lanes all over the place. And if you block the bike lane, if you walk in the bike lane, if you scooter in the bike lane, if you park in the bike lane, if you do anything that disrupts the way the bikes are supposed to go, the locals will get a little upset with you. And don't be surprised if you get a, hey, get out of the way, or you know, some other choice Canadian words to let you know that you're not in the right place. So don't upset them by messing with the bike lane, all right? Now, another thing that might upset the locals is if you come in and you don't at least try to speak a little French when you are here. Look, everybody speaks English along with French when you're here, but the thing is we're in Quebec, and French is the predominant language here, and we're in Montreal, where French is the predominant language. So at least have a bonjour when you walk into a store, and a merci for thank you when you're thankful for something, because that's appreciated here. They don't expect you to speak fluent French. They know you're a tourist. You probably don't speak much anything aside from English, and that's okay, but at least try some French, or at least venture into a little French-speaking kind of chat, because that will go a lot farther than just busting in English. I mean, I think that's like our #1 don't when you come here, is don't just bust in English, because, you know, look, we're in Quebec. We're in the French-speaking part of Canada, okay? So just know that. And another thing that might make them kind of shake their head and go, ugh, is if you point out the language difference in terms of size of font at the restaurants. Look, I gotta warn you, if you're gonna be coming here, you have to realize there's actually regulations that dictate that French has to be on the menu, and English too, but the English has to be smaller than the French. So if you're used to going into restaurants and having to get your readers on, you're really gonna need them when you're here. And if you point that out to the restaurant, they can't do anything about it, so don't upset them, just know that that's a thing you have to know. Since we're speaking about the French language and we're in the French part of Canada, we're here in Quebec, I think another thing that might be a topic you might want to kind of steer away from if you do come here is Quebec independence. Look, in the 90s, I remember when there was referendums, there's a lot of stuff for Quebec independence, we're going to go out on our own. There's a lot of history, there's a lot of stuff going on, there's a lot of moving parts when you're talking about Quebec independence. And the thing is, some people don't even think anything about it. It's no big thing, it's like, whatever. But for other people, it can really mean a lot. And you don't know who Quebec independence is really important to and who it's not really important to. So that's why it's usually best to kind of steer away from that conversation. And I guess that'll lead me into another thing that you might not even realize will upset the locals, and it upsets the locals anyway, even if you don't talk about it, and that's the Habs. Well, you know what the Habs are? The Montreal Canadiens, the local hockey team that they love, and then hate. Yeah, like people get irrationally upset with the Canadians when they're playing mostly in the end of the season and their lack of success in the postseason. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm here in the fall, I'm seeing Montreal Canadian jerseys all over the place. Preseason games are on, I'm hoping to go to one so I can enjoy that. But I know that this happiness and joy and love they have for the Canadians, yeah, the Habs, their love kind of falls off when you get towards like March, April, May. You know, you don't see them playing in May and June very much, you know, because they don't have a lot of success. But that's one thing that just people get irked about, because it's not you talking about it, just you bringing it up and then realizing that this is probably not going to be the Habs season again. And especially if you kind of put it in perspective of Toronto. And that's one thing I want to tell you is definitely if you want to upset the people here, one, just compare Montreal to any other city around the world and say that other city's better, because the people here love their city. There's a lot of pride here. But especially if you compare Montreal to Toronto, because there is definitely some competition between the two. So best to leave that alone. Don't be like, oh, I just came from Toronto, we had so much fun, or I'm going to Toronto and we're gonna have a good time there. Where are you going next? Oh, I'm just taking the train west. You could be going to Ottawa. You could be going to Vancouver. You could be going to Toronto, maybe, you know, but just better not to do that, because that's kind of a touchy subject here in Montreal. Now, another thing that might upset your local Canadian servers when you're here is if you forget to tip. Look, in Canada, you do tip 15 to 20%. I think 18% is probably like a good way to go. And what's cool is if you pay with card, they actually give you the machine and you can pick the percentage, and you can pick what the tip you want to have, which makes it a lot easier. But if you're paying with cash, you need a tip there. And that's one thing. If you're not tipping your servers, you're not tipping your waiters, that might upset them a little bit, because that's part of their living and that's part of the thing we do here in Canada. It's tipping. Don't forget it. And as a tourist, I think one thing we kind of forget is when we're walking around enjoying all the beauty of this. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're walking around the Plateau neighborhood with all the bars, restaurants, and cute houses that are there. You're up in Montreal, or you're walking around here in old, Vue Montreal, old Montreal. There's so many beautiful things to take a picture of, take a video of, to get your selfie with. One thing that might upset the locals is if you just stop in the middle of the sidewalk to take your pictures. Look, it's really easy. You see something beautiful, because you see a lot here in Montreal. Just step to the side and take your picture, or step to the other side and take your picture. Don't stand in the middle, because this is a working city. It's not just tourism and everything is tourists. No, this is a living, breathing city, and they're going to work, they're going to school, they're going to pick up their kids from class. So make sure you kind of just stand out of the way, because just like in all big cities, they don't want to get held up, so be aware of that. And I think the last thing you want to bring up, and there's more things that might upset the locals, please do put in the comment section below of things I might have forgotten to put in there. As locals, you might want to share with tourists coming here. But for me, I know I've seen this, is when people say, oh, you don't really speak real French, you speak Quebecois. Look, they speak French here. It's not, it's not real French, it's Quebecois, it's Canadian French. Look, if you're from the US, you speak English, right? If you're from Britain, you speak English, right? If you're from, wherever in the world, you speak English. It's the same thing with French. They speak French here. And if you say they don't speak real French, you look like a pompous prick, okay? So don't do that. When you're here, yes, there's some different words, there's some different things out there, just like in every language, but please realize we speak French when you're here in Montreal. So I hope this helps you know a few things that you should know, so you're not an ugly tourist when you come here to Montreal, because it really is a great city to visit. Tons of museums, tons of markets, tons of green space to go to, going out to the island, seeing the museums, going around old Montreal. It's a fantastic place, so don't miss out on it, all right? And don't piss off the locals when you're here, okay? So I hope this helps you know a bit more about how to be a better tourist when you're here in Montreal. Bye from Montreal.